This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
The final score from the racecourse: Wrexham 5, Salford City 1. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm not taking it back. Not bad at all. Wrexham with an absolutely magnificent performance, a top of the table game in front of a brilliant crowd of over 8,000, and wow, did they live up to the occasion. Believe me, they did a superb performance this. I've got to say again, straight away from the start, Wrexham, with their preparation, looked like they'd properly scouted and looked at Salford City, something which, as I've said in the past, I've not been so sure we have done earlier in the season, because our setup was slightly altered, our approach slightly altered, and it was extremely effective. Wrexham unchanged from the sides that drew disappointingly at Aldershot, but the mentality and the approach was different. This lopsided 4-3-3 that we've been playing, we played at Aldershot, we played here. Rutherford a little bit deeper, Grant high up on the right hand side, Akeel Wright pushing really high up the pitch to try and put pressure on, and it was very effective. It disrupted Salford's ability to move the ball around. Their passing rhythm was disturbed in their own half. They lost the ball a lot in their own half, and then Rutherford making these little flicking diagonal runs in between the centre backs after Bevan's movement, naturally complementing Rutherford. He'd drag out wide on the left hand side, pull defenders out, Rutherford would break inside, gave them real issues. Akeel Wright getting high at the pitch meant that he was able to get into positions, and he actually scored. Akeel Wright, yeah, everything happened today, and wow, that was kind of perfect, apart from the deflected 95th minute consolation goal that Salford got. So, just to pick the bones through it, in front of that fantastic crowd, Wrexham starting fast. For the third time in a row, Wrexham got a very early home goal. The genesis of it really came when Wrexham won a corner through excellent endeavour. Rutherford working extremely hard, as he would all match, winning the ball for Grant. Grant, where first touch let him down slightly when the breakaway looked on, but he still managed to play a tempting ball into the box. Akeel Wright bursting forwards into the penalty area, denied by a really good tackle by Pond, but the reprieve was temporary, and Pond, starting the half well, would soon find he was going to go through 45 minutes of Stuart Bevan provoked hell. The corner was swung in from the right-hand side. Summerfield lofting it to the edge of the 6-yard box. Sean Pearson had eyes on it from the start, attacked it well on the edge of the 6-yard box and planted it back across the keeper from the far post. And Wrexham, in the third minute, were a goal up. Now, Salford reacted fairly well. I mean, you could see, even though in many ways they were disabled by Wrexham's hard work and good organised pressing, they were a good quality side who could move the ball around well. They came back at Wrexham, had a decent little spell of possession in the Wrexham half, and had one decent chance. It came from a diagonal, Jennings beaten in the air by Rooney. It dropped loose on the edge of the box, and Matt Green, making his first start for Salford, was really sharp and alert to spot the opportunity, latch onto it, and from the edge of the area hit a snapshot which whistled just wide of the right post. Leighton probably would have had a chance had it been on target. But that was just a rare spasm forwards in terms of actual creativity for Salford. Although they moved the ball around pretty well in Wrexham's half, Wrexham were the side who looked to have goals in them, pushing forwards on the break swiftly, absorbing pressure well when they had spells without the ball, and dragging Salford's defence around into areas they just did not want to be. Wrexham's next opportunity came from a lovely piece of improvisation. I've got to say, whether this makes the highlights when I edit them later tonight or not, I'm not quite sure. It depends on how it looks from the from our angle. In the B concept stand, it was a sensational effort. From the camera angle in the Hayes Travel stand, it might not look so spectacular. Jennings had a throw about 20 yards out. Rutherford offered to come short and then span away from him. Jennings threw it over his shoulder, and as it dropped, Rutherford tried a tremendous shot from the left flank, trying to launch it over the keeper. Neil, the goalie, backpedaled and was able to catch it pretty comfortably in the end at his far post. But from our vantage point, right behind the shot, if it had just a bit more power on it, it would have soared over him to the top corner and would have been an absolute screamer. Like I said, let's see if it makes it into the highlights, because to be honest, on the far side it might just look like an underhit shot, but it was a great effort, and Wrexham didn't have long to ponder that before they did have the second goal. Again, Wrexham showing intelligence this time on the breakaway. The ball broke down the left hand side. Grant picked it up, or Bevan picked it up, and there was very little in the area because Grant had been fouled in the build-up as he fed Bevan. Referee played advantage. Bevan found himself rather isolated on the left, and so intelligently he waited. Only Rutherford was in the middle, and Wrexham recirculated the ball across to the right hand side. Ultimately, it was picked out for Summerfield, and Summerfield, now with bodies in the box, ripped a great ball to the far post. A keel right, and managed to get round the side of the defence, and with a free header 6 yards out, just like Pearson had, planted it back across the keeper to make it 2-0. Wrexham were cock a hoop and continued to push on and look threatening. Bevan and Rutherford putting good pressure on the goalkeeper, Neil, who hit a poor clearance straight to Mark Carrington 35 yards out. He took a touch and immediately tried to lift it over the stranded keeper. A good effort, which went just wide of the left post. And a couple of minutes later, it was Bevan causing problems again, this time holding the ball up really well and swinging it across at the far post. Pond, who was toiling at this point, but more of him later, slashed a dreadful clearance up in the air. A keel right 6 yards out and unmarked. It was a hell of an opportunity. The only problem was it was a difficult one to make advantage of technically, because the ball was really dropping pretty much vertically onto him. It was a tricky header to try and get right, so he tried to plant it back across the keeper. I think he was going for goal. It was well off target. In fact, it nearly turned into an assist for Grant attacking it, and it was cleared, but Wrexham immediately picked it up. Bevan in the hole, breaking forwards, beating two men to get to the edge of the area and playing a clever ball out to Rutherford on the left side of the box. He stood up across to the far post. Great ball to Grant, who launched into a spectacular scissors kick 8 yards out. Toure did well to get a block on. Straight after that incident, Bevan went down hurt, and well, I guess it's time for the ballads of Bevan and Pond, isn't it, really? From the very start, Lucy Scott and myself and the commentary at Carl FM felt Bevan wasn't quite right somehow. You know, he's always a terrific nuisance, fantastic energy, bursting around, hassling defenders. Didn't quite look himself. He was doing okay, but that energy and feistiness and aggression when he was chasing people wasn't quite there. Of course, you know, commentators cursed. The moment we said that, he started looking more his old self and chasing around. But after this burst, he did need treatment, and we suspected, we have not confirmed yet, that maybe he's unwell, because he didn't quite look right, but he was able to get up and carry on and continue his harassment of Nathan Pond, the centre-back. Now, we all know Bevan is a nightmare and a real nuisance to mark, but Pond had a meltdown like nobody else has done so far this season at Bevan's hands. He was constantly hassling him, constantly bothering him. Pond very lucky not to already received a yellow card as a consequence of the way that Bevan was getting under his skin. And then, in the 43rd minute, Bevan, well, nearly drew a red card from him. Bevan picking it up on the halfway line, right-hand side. He was the furthest player forwards. Pond was the furthest player back. Bevan span him with a beautiful first touch, and, well, Pond's response was just to hack him. No attempt to play the ball. That would have gone 20 yards into the Salford half, but he just didn't look where the ball had gone and just kicked Bevan up in the air. The crowd was screaming for a red card. It was the first of 4 yellows the referee would give, where I think he had to give thought as to whether it was a red or not. I think on each occasion the ref got it right and gave a yellow, but with the awareness that it could have been something more. On this occasion, was he the last defender? Yeah, I think he was. But he was up on the halfway line and right in front of the dugout. So was it a goal-scoring opportunity? No. But then the second thing to factor in, how violent was it? Because Pond made no attempt to play the ball whatsoever and just hacked at Bevan. On those grounds, I would argue, I think the ref got it right and it was a yellow. If he'd given a red, I don't think that Pond could have really complained too much about it. Anyway, the yellow was what he got. It didn't matter all that much, because pretty much straight away Wrexham worked the ball down the left-hand side, fed it inside, and it was Brad Walker's moment to shine. He'd already had one of his trademark crazy shots from distance. This one was rather better. He received it 25 yards out, sidestepped one man, drove through the middle. There was a gap in the middle of the defence. He managed to hold off the challenge of another, and from the edge of the D, went for power and got the power. Right into the bottom right corner. Tremendous strike, and Wrexham were 3-0 up at half-time. The first time you've been 3-0 up at half-time since, our last home game. Funny that. The restart, Wrexham had a bright opening minute or so, pushing into Salford's half, and then Salford settled down. They changed their shape a little bit from the 4-4-2. Lloyd tucking in behind the strikers. It was more of a diamond, and it improved them in the Wrexham half. They had better possession and a good 10-15 minutes of working the ball around, but Wrexham's shape was excellent. Very difficult to get at Wrexham in the penalty area. Wrexham defending quite narrow and really making it hard for Salford to find space in and around the box. Well, in the box, almost impossible. Around the box, they were getting half chances at shots, but they were getting charged down very swiftly. The midfield extremely energetic. Walker making lots of interceptions. The two centre-backs likewise. Jennings won a heck of a lot of defensive charges challenges in and around the area, and Carrington was his usual totally rock-solid self at right-back. Summerfield was magnificent in midfield, intercepting and playing the ball forwards. He often was the key man, able to break the pressure in both halves. He was the player who played the balls up to Bevan, who in turn was really good at holding the ball up and causing problems. All this was happening while Pond was watching, by the way, because at half-time Salford had to admit reality. He was going to get himself sent off with Bevan bothering him to such an extent, and he'd been subbed at half-time. There was one opportunity, well, I'll beg your pardon before I get to that. Well, there's one opportunity that Salford had in that spell, really, to create. It was from a set piece, a free kick, which was dinked into the box. It was a fairly prolonged scramble around the edge of the area. It came back out to Mufta, and from the edge of the area, he hit it with real power through a crowded box, but put it well wide of the left post. Salford could have lost their other starting centre-back in the opening stages of the half as well. A second of those decisions the ref had to make as to whether to give a yellow or a red. Carl Piergiani, the other central defender, getting involved with Grant. Grant was caught offside, didn't want to give the ball back. Piergiani was sucked into it, grabbed hold of Grant and ended up throwing him to the ground. The referee just had to, I suppose, adjudicate to what extent Grant invited this and hurled himself to the ground to emphasise it or not. He decided on yellow. Could very easily have been a red, in all honesty. Not the smartest decision making, but I think a sign that Wrexham are getting under Salford's skins and really starting to wind them up and bother them in all sorts of ways. Mafuta was lucky as well not to get a red for a very late challenge on Grant. It was one of those where Grant on the right flank came inside, his touch was poor, the ball got away from him, and I think that invited Mafuta to come in hard and try and win the tackle, but he got it wrong, and it was a very late ugly tackle on him, which he was a little fortunate to get a yellow for. And then Toure would also commit a very similar foul to Pond, a hack with no attempt to play the ball on a Wrexham man. This time it was Ben Tollett, the debutant, who by that point had come on as a substitute. The referee, again, probably the last offender, but on the halfway line, so that isn't really a factor, but the cynicism of the challenge probably made the ref think about it. But again, the ref gave a yellow. He would give a red eventually, but in very different circumstances. But more of that later, because Wrexham, after riding the storm, started to create chances once more. Carrington feeding a good ball to Rutherford, and he'd on the left-hand side, he did really well to feed it into the box. Grant attacking it 15 yards out, a clear sight of goal, tried to side-foot it. Obviously, side-foot it, going for placement. Unfortunately, that's what he didn't manage. Hit it straight down the middle. The keeper was able to save, but Wrexham continues to push at them. A good breakaway. Grant combining with Summerfield. Summerfield pass this time, forcing Rutherford a bit too wide down the left channel, but he still did well to correct himself and from a tight angle hit a shot, which Neil did well to spread himself and parry into the goal mouth. Piergiani was the first to get to it in front of an open goal and hack it clear. By now, Tollett was on for the ailing Bevan and was starting to really cause problems down the right-hand side. You could see his quality. The first indication of it came with the 81st minute. Tolley's cutting inside, and it's very smooth and comfortable. The way he glides over the pitch with the ball at his feet, ran across the width of the pitch almost, played a nice little 1-2 with Rutherford. The thing I liked about this was Tolley's just awareness that having done that and carried the ball so far, he wasn't going to lay it off and then leave it to Rutherford. He wanted to then be involved. He wanted to offer the return pass and stay involved in the play. So he popped it off to Rutherford, immediately was demanding it in a pocket of space, received it, burst into the box, and from a tight angle drove in a shot which the keeper did well to stand up and block. But 5 minutes later, the keeper had absolutely no chance when Tollett and Rutherford combined again. Tollett coming in narrow, and the moment of the goal, apart from the quality of the finish, for me came when Tollett fed Rutherford in down the left-hand side. By this point, Salford were going all for broke. They made so many attacking substitutions. They're the right winger on at right back, and Rutherford was trying to take advantage of that space. But the weight of Tollett's ball to Rutherford addressed something which has bothered me of Wrexham this season. We've got into good breakaway positions, and the passing hasn't been crisp enough, hasn't been good enough, the decision making hasn't been good enough, and a good breakaway is petered out without a shot on goal. Well, Tollett's pass invited Rutherford to run at his man, commit him, and then play it back to Tollett, who of course had made a good run into the right sort of area. Rutherford did exactly that, and as his teammate obliged, Tollett took advantage, breaking into the box and smashing a shot with relish into the roof of the net to put Wrexham 4 up. In the last minute, Salford, their frustration blatant, went down to 10 men. Thomas Walker, who had picked up a yellow card earlier in the half for a cynical shirt tug, slid in late on Tollis, a silly challenge. It really looked like the referee had maybe not realised he'd booked him already. Certainly James Jennings thought that. He ran across the pitch and was clearly gesturing to have to say you've already booked him with his finger in the air. The referee did eventually give the second yellow. It was a correct decision, and Walker had to walk. And Wrexham, against 10 men, continued to push on and got the fifth in the fifth added minutes. It was again a good breakaway down the left-hand side, which when it was snuffed out led to Salford just melting down completely. Horrible ball back to Piergiani, the centre-back on the edge of the area, but he got there and then played the most ridiculous under-hit back pass. Holroyd did well to latch onto it. He was forced wide, but went for power. The keeper got his body to it, but ricocheted into the ground and up into the roof of the net. Wrexham 5-0 up, and late sub Chris Holroyd had a goal. Scoring still hadn't finished. In the 5th minute of added time, Salford got a rather undeserved consolation. Wrexham defending on the edge of the area. The ball played out to Whitehead, and he drove in a powerful shot which took a massive deflection. Laneton with absolutely no chance, and he was furious. Another clean sheet, it looked like, which would have been a 20th, believe it or not, of the season for Wrexham already. So frustration for him. Frustration for those of you like me who are thinking that we've got a bit of a club record lined up here. 20 clean sheets, like I said, already this season. The club record's 26. The club record for league matches is 19. But there was one just chalked off, unlucky. But hey, let's not look too much at the negatives, shall we? There were quite a lot of positives about today. Oh, and did I mention that Leyton Orient lost too? Yeah, this wasn't the worst Boxing Day of all time, I've got to be honest. For further analysis, or even further analysis, sorry, I went a bit Brooklyn there, have a listen to what Lucy Scott and myself had to say after the final whistle on Callan FM.
This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
Wow, what a performance that was by Wrexham. Rising to the occasion. It's a commonly held belief that Lucy mentioned at the start of the commentary that when there's a big crowd in, Wrexham often don't rise to the occasion. Well, 8,283 fans here, and they are being applauded by a Wrexham side walking around the pitch, who certainly turned up, taking on second place Salford and beating them 5-1, and that was a hell of a performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And pre this match, we have struggled in terms of finishing and quality finishes, but I would say all 5 goals today were quality finishes, and so we were clinical in that department. Early on, it did look like Salford were going to pose a threat, but they are very attacking, very creative, but we just did so well across the entire team to mute their effect, really. And other than a late deflected goal, which Laneton had no chance for, just as a team, I mean, just like we said before, it is subtle changes, I think, but definitely a lot more cohesive under Barrow than they were under Ricketts.
Well, that's exactly the next point I was going to make, that under Barrow that there seems to be a good use of the scouting of the opposition, a subtle attempt to try and exploit little flaws in the other side, a strangely lopsided 4-3-3 that we fielded, and we stretched their back 4 around, found gaps between the lines, and we looked a thoroughly well prepared team, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, definitely, and the second half as well, it was all Salford, and you were thinking if they get an early goal, you know, will we sit back more, and there was early pressure and a lot of pressure from Salford, but we did really well to keep them away, really, and then Tollitt's goal, I mean, what a finish. But like I said, all of the goals, great finishes, but I think that kind of put it to bed then, didn't it? Any opportunity, because 3-1, 3-2, you're suddenly a bit edgy, you see a bit worried, but I don't know who before today would have thought we'd have won 5-1, I mean, and score that many goals. You think we may sneak a 1-0 win, because defensively we are solid, but not 5, but just credit to the team, all played so well.
I'm going to put you on the spot and answer the man of the match, simply because I think then we could talk about some of the other performances. There have been some great performances. Do you have a name in mind?
So tough, because Laneton didn't have to do much. Backline did really well. Again, though, didn't have to do. I mean, as a unit, they did. I think I'm going to go with him just because I think he was under the weather, but I think he was so effective. I think I will go with Bevan. Yeah. Because he was so effective. He wound Pond up. He got under Piagiani's skin, and he was just so effective. But there were a lot of contenders who could have won that.
He was massive, Bevan, wasn't he? Like you said, you get their centre back stopped at half time. You might think it's unusual that somebody who's brought off after 65 minutes of the match, but the fact is, by then the game was essentially won, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His disruptive influence at the back was what really gave their defence huge problems.
Yeah.
Summerfield as well, I thought was massive in midfield. A couple of assists, constantly there, right with his interceptions. It's hard to pick a performer, isn't it? Really, they were Rutherford's non-stop.
Yeah, exactly, and I think just more positive in our overall play. You know, if we have the ball in midfield, rather than going sideways or back, we're actually looking forwards more, and that was a big difference today. And I do think it goes into getting Brad Walker and Akil Wright in the same team. I think that does make a big difference.
Well, that's a good point you made at half time, that Barrow's looking to do that more, has done every time he can pick both of those players.
Yeah.
And the rigidity and solidity and the energy in midfield was a huge factor, the way we outnumbered their two central players, I thought.
Definitely, and looking at Saturday, I think he's going to have a bit of a headache in terms of, because I would start Tollett, assuming he is, is he match fit? Probably not, but I just think the quality of him. But who would you drop? That's the other side. Who would you take out of that team? Who has gelled and is cohesive? So again, I would start Tollett, but I don't know who I take out instead. But
nice problem to have. Young,
it is a nice
back
problem.
from suspension too. But wow, lots of nice problems for Wrexham to have at the moment. A brilliant performance here in this top of the table Boxing Day treat. I'll hand back to the studio, rather elated with the final score of Wrexham 5, Salford City 1.
This is the Final Whistle podcast with the Wrexham AFC media team.